Something happened in the Weekly Standard last night involving me that I can't recall ever happening before. I have been properly credited with the invention of and the creation of a term that's now being used in the political campaign. I am never credited that way. It's a new day. Along those lines, I mentioned that the Weekly Standard has a piece in it that very, very rarely has this ever happened to me. In fact, I can't ever remember it happening. I'm sure it has, because it's been 27 years I've been doing this. The headline of this, and it's not a hit piece, it's not a criticism, the headline's going to mislead you. The headline is, "No, Ted Cruz did not invent the term undocumented Democrat." Apparently, Senator Cruz has been running around after this spat with Marco Rubio on immigration and amnesty and legalization. Cruz has been using the term undocumented Democrat instead of illegal alien as a means of demonstrating what the Democrats' interest in this whole thing is. So, now that you know that, here's the Weekly Standard story. Consider, in his current quest to out-Trump Trump, Ted Cruz has begun referring to illegal immigrants as undocumented Democrats. This is hardly original. The phrase has been a staple of the Rush Limbaugh program for at least 5 years. And the joke also migrated from the Limbaugh show to a Jay Leno monologue in 2013 as well. If there's any story here, it's that Cruz is making a strategic decision to appeal to ditto heads by lifting Russia's language. That is significant insofar as while Limbaugh has not endorsed Trump, he has tended to be very, very friendly toward the estate mogul on his radio show. Okay, so perhaps it's too much to ask for the New York Times and NPR reporters to listen to Rush regularly. Though given that he remains a singular figure on the right, it would certainly bolster their reporting if they tuned in at least every now and again. But this is a revealing episode in that it shows how little many in the mainstream media really understand about the American right. This is not an example of journalists consciously skewing a story. Instead, these two reporters at two of the most prestigious news organizations in the U.S. were simply unaware of the term because they know nothing of Limbaugh. Well, here what's happening is that Cruz is being crucified. The media can't believe that Cruz would actually call them undocumented Democrats. That's not what they are. They're illegal aliens. They're brilliant people. They're acts of love or whatever they are. And the Weekly Standard guy's point is, wait a minute, you idiot reporters, do you not know that this term has been floating around for 5 years and that Cruz is lifting it? And that's not a criticism. This guy's criticism is of the reporters upset at Cruz because they are blind. They willingly ignore the news and the happenings, the thoughts, the fears, all of that of over half the people in this country, i.e. the American right. So again, Weekly Standard story, this isn't an example of journalists consciously skewing a story. Rather, these two reporters at two of the most prestigious news organizations were simply unaware of the term because they know nothing of Limbaugh. A massive success whose ratings are roughly on par with Morning Edition. Nor apparently do they know much about Googling. Had either reporter simply searched the term undocumented Democrat, they would have seen that Cruz did not invent it. Indeed, Iowa Congressman Steve King, who has endorsed Cruz, used the term in an interview this spring. And by the way, when Cruz takes it a step further and starts using it, referring it to anchor Democrats, well, that's been out there before, too. That's awfully great. I mention this to you because I'm not aware of having been credited. Gorbasm invented that word. Feminazi invented that word. Now part of the American lexicon. Well, yes. In some corners and in some bedrooms, I do get credit for the term feminazi. You're right. But that's not, I wouldn't say credit, Mr. Snerdley. It's more like blame. I mean, they don't say that happily. They don't like the term. But Gorbism, that was one of the early inventions or creations here. And, of course, it corrects the drive-bys before I even have the chance to or even the inclination to. But I'll tell you what it is. It's a subtle move by Cruz because it's the only reason that the Democrats support this. It's not compassion. It's not humanitarianism. It's none of that. I'll say it again. The Democrat Party requires a dependent and permanent underclass. Now, people in that underclass can improve and move out of it, but they need to be replaced. The Democrat Party cannot survive if the population as a whole improves itself economically to the point of not being dependent on government. If that were to ever happen, it'd be the end of the Democrat Party as we know it today. So they need a permanent underclass. They need permanent poor people, uneducated people. And the greater challenge speaking English, the better. The more dependent, the less educated, the less worldly, the better. Doesn't matter what the impact on the country is. All that matters is keeping Democrats in power. Because the Democrats know they're never going to live where these people live. So they're never going to be affected by this in their own thinking, in their own minds. They're never going to live in barrios. They're never going to live in ghettos. They're never going to live in inner cities. They're never going to live where these people that they bring in the country are going to end up being. And they're not going to hire them. They're not going to be around them at all. That's for the rest of us to deal with. They're going to be insulated, but they need that permanent underclass. That's why I proposed, hey, look, I would support amnesty. I will join the Democrats. I will change. In fact, I promised to do this. I promised to guarantee a shift in support among my listeners, sizable number, if amnesty had a lasting provision in it that no recipient of amnesty could vote for 25 years. Call it a poison pill. I wasn't doing anything other than illustrating the truth. You put in a provision that the newly amnestized, for lack of a better, can't vote for 25 years, and bingo, Democrats stop caring about them. There's no compassion. There's no humanitarianism. Not one person, Republican or Democrat, ever called me on that. And let me tell you something. If I were at any day in the future to announce that I've changed my mind and now support comprehensive immigration reform and a path to citizenship with no provisos, they'll be all over me. They'll call, they'll ask me to join them doing things here. They will celebrate. All of a sudden, I'd become one of the greatest guys in the country. But when I threw in the requirement they can't vote for 25 years, I was universally, totally ignored by everybody. Democrat, Republican, Independent, Communist, Fascist, Socialist, you name it. I didn't hear from one person.